Emanuel here from New Work by Design. In this video, I want to look into the underlying principles that explain why employee engagement is usually low and how to change things in a way that enable you to increase employee engagement. So I'll start out with a question to get us into the mindset of what do you think is the percentage of people in Europe who are engaged at work. Gallup does a study or a survey about this every year since 2000, and it's actually increasing, getting better, but still the results are, from my perspective, quite shocking. Because in Europe, there's only 13% of people who are engaged at work. There's 72% of not engaged people, and 16% of people are actively disengaged, meaning they're actually unhappy and they spread bad vibes at work to their coworkers. So what is needed to change that? And I tried to put it all in one diagram, and I'm going to walk you through. So I think I'll start on the bottom left, and there's two sides. So the left side is what the employer gives, and the right side is what the employee gives in return to each other. Right. So on the bottom left we have work practices, meaning how you apply an idea, belief, or method as opposed to a theory relating to it. So how do you actually do things? How do you interact within your company? And that might be things like how do you deal with conflict, or how do you give feedback and things like that. From my perspective, in order to increase or maximize engagement of people, these org practices need to be aligned with, or rather pointing towards, intrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation needs to be the guiding factor of how you design your org practices. Intrinsic motivation is the natural and inherent drive to pursue something. So it's coming from within people. They don't need to be bribed or convinced to do that with money or titles or bonuses or such, but they actually want it out of themselves. And the four components are autonomy, mastery, purpose, and belonging. I'll just go more in detail into that in a different video. And then once you have that in place, I think then you created the environment where actual fulfillment of employees can happen. Doesn't mean that it has to, but that creates an environment where it can, that enables it. So in fulfillment, I would say, is the feeling of satisfaction as a result of doing something meaningful. So once you've got that in place, then, only then, you actually deserve the engagement of your employees. And engagement is basically how much do people participate and how much are they getting involved in the company and how it's working. And once you've got engaged people, that then supports creating commitment. And commitment is about being dedicated to a cause or an activity or something like that. So it actually means something to you. You're committed to it. It's you probably go above and beyond of what is just expected from you because you actually care. And then that is what actually fuels high performance, meaning doing something really well. And then that leads back to the company or the employer, where if you've got people who are high performing and you actually create great outcomes for the company, that enables you again to invest time and effort and money into shaping the company and its practices in a way that gives you that virtuous cycle. So that ties all the concepts together, I think, are necessary to create high engagement in your employees. Now, what is happening instead most of the time is that companies purely shape their organizational practices with the goal of efficiency in mind. So, and they completely disregard intrinsic motivation, and that there are a group of humans working together. And then what they do is they demand the commitment of their employees and that they are performing well. And guess what? How that is working out for them? Well, it doesn't. It leads to exactly this, to most people being disengaged at work and not actually caring. So why would anyone do that? I think there's some underlying beliefs and a mindset that leads you to structure and design your organization in a way that is just going towards efficiency and not caring about the person and what they actually want and what their needs are and their motivation. So I think the underlying thing for the going towards just efficiency is to understanding your company as a machine. Whereas going towards intrinsic motivation is when you understand, your company isn't actually a mechanical thing. It's a living organism made up of the people within it. So it's no wonder if you treat your company as a machine to optimize, and ideally your employees are just replaceable robots. Why would they care? Why would they actually go above and beyond for the company if you actually treat them like replaceable parts? It doesn't make any sense. And a second thing to understand is, I think let's say 100 years ago in industrialization, people working in factories, what people mostly were looking for was security. They wanted a secure job. But over the last century, we just moved up Maslow's hierarchy, and people in the market now actually seek more than that. They seek for something meaningful to spend their time with and put their time and effort into. So we just moved up on that hierarchy of needs, and people just expect more from their employer today than they did 100 years ago, or even just 10, 20 years ago. And the third thing is a different perspective on human motivation. I think the old world is to think that people need to be motivated, and it's usually characterized with a carrot and a stick, right? A carrot, which is offering something that people want, like a money, status, usually coming, in the form of a bonus or a fancy title. Whereas understanding that people are self-motivated, that they have this intrinsic motivation, so you just need to set up the environment where that intrinsic motivation can flourish. So you provide the ground where that can happen, and then that seedling of intrinsic motivation grows by itself into a tree. So that has also been studied. It's known as theory X and theory Y, and I'll point you to a place that goes into more detail in the notes. So what does it take then to create an environment like that? From my experience with working with 3 companies over a decade, these are the 9 key practices that I think a company needs to implement well in order to create such an environment where intrinsic motivation can flourish. So I'll quickly go through them. There is local inclusive decision making, so people actually feel like they can influence what's happening in their environment. Then there is defaulting to transparency, which enables this decision making. So data or information is per default transparent to everyone, unless there's a reason to make it secret. Usually companies do that the other way around. And there's leading by attracting, so a different way of leading people. It's not about controlling them and directing them and telling them what to do, but rather convincing them that this is the right path and cause they should follow. And there's aligned autonomous goals. So how do you actually agree on what to do in the company, and how is that happening? Tied to that, autonomous teams. So having teams that actually own something, where they can see the direct impact of what they're doing. In most companies, people are removed very far from their customers. They're just carrying out a task without being able to tie that to how that affects the people they actually serve. And there's constructive conflict. So how do you deal with conflict? There is growth-oriented feedback. So how do you give each other feedbacks that enables growth? And also then guidance on an individual growth path. So how do you actually help people to grow within your company? And last but not least, strong relationships. How do you actually interact with each other? And so there's a lot to say about each of these points. And in fact, these 9 key practices are the 9 sections in my online course, and that goes into a lot of detail about what they are, how to implement them, and also gives templates and so forth to get you going quickly. Anyway, this is all I wanted to say for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope that was useful. I'll link in the notes to a post that goes into more detail about the key practices and also about the interdependencies. Thanks for watching. Take care.